You know, as they say, the way pastors say that, what they do is a calling. I think for me, activism also was a calling. And I started doing activism many years ago when I was still in high school. I remember I was arrested. My mom sent me to go and buy meat. And along the way, there was a police inspection area, and everyone was being arrested. And then, they took us to Central Police Station. And when you get to the police station now is when they start looking for, mistakes to pin on you. And since I was below 18, I was still in high school, they asked me for my ID. I told them I don't have an ID, I'm a student. They said, hauna ID. So they wrote their alien, no ID or something like that, and they told me to go in. And it was in the late 90s. So of course, the mobile phones and other stuffs were not easy to come by. And I had to spend the night in the police cells. And the next morning is when my family was looking for me and discovered that I was actually in the police station. So that's when they had to speak and talk to the police station, and eventually I was released. And from that time, I felt very angry that I spent this night in the police station, that my family had to still bribe the police even after coming with my school ID. And I was like, this is not fair. This is not right. And we were not coming from a well-to-do family. Hiyo pesa ya nyama ndio ilikuwa ina to last the whole, we would have nyama once a week or something like that. And because they had to bribe, it meant like, the budget for the entire week had just, gone to the police. So it's at that point I felt very bitter and I said, no. This can't be the country in which we are living in. So we have to do what we can to improve the situation. And for me, I consider that as the beginning of now beginning to understand how the country is run. Why do we have police officers who are oppressing the masses? Why are people being arrested for no reason? Why do we need to bribe the police, for that matter? So from then onwards, I developed a keen interest on following up on issues, particularly to do with security and justice. And I guess that is what took me through. I went to law school, and eventually I am doing what I'm doing today. What really irks me is when I see innocent lives being lost. And even after lives being lost, instead of families and the victims getting justice, every other day you see people being taken round and round. That really irks me. It makes me feel like, why is this happening? The Constitution is very clear. The laws of the land are very clear. Why can't we just simply implement them? Someone is a suspect, you have been accused or you've been mentioned, you're supposed to be arrested, you're investigated, you're charged in a court of law. It should be that simple. But in Kenya, we have a situation where the politically correct and those who are wealthy, are treated differently from the rest of us, which shouldn't be the case. A society is not judged by how they treat the mighty, the rich, and the politically correct. A society is judged by how they treat the poor, how they treat the weak and the marginalized. And if we are to judge the Kenyan society and how we treat the weak, the poor, and the marginalized, then we are a rotten society. Albert Ojwang is no more. And the person who initiated, what happened to him is still walking scot-free. That's why I'm saying, as a country, we have a lot to improve on. We have to give credit to the Gen Zs. I believe we have a generation in our hands that has decided enough is enough. And all of them as a generation want to bring change to this country. So we must commend the Gen Zs for their boldness, for their courage, and for their determination to make the country better. But of course, the Gen Zs are now operating in an environment that is conducive for activism, for democracy, and for airing opinions. Of course, we have social media, and all you need to do is, at the tap of your fingers, send messages out. We didn't have that luxury 10, 20 years ago. Of course, the situation was more challenging in terms of dealing with the civic space. So I would say we have now a good combination of the environment plus a very bold generation, one that is educated. We must give credit to the former president, Kibaki, for introducing the free primary education and for passing laws that would require everyone to go to school. You know, before Kibaki, if you're not going to school, it's your own loss. But we made it illegal for anyone below the 18 years of age to not go to school. That meant many of these children who were born around that time or who were of school age around that time had to go to school. So they're educated. They can read messages on phone. They can listen to the news. They understand what is happening around them. And then couple that with the new Constitution 2010, which is praised to be one of the best constitutions in Africa, where the Bill of Rights is very bold and very strong and very clear. And of course now social media coming in and sharing of information is now very easy. So we have a combination that then makes it conducive, it makes it easier for people to challenge the powers of the day. But all said and done, the courage of the Gen Zs is perhaps the most important aspect of our lives today. The environment is conducive for information sharing. Definitely. We can easily get to know someone was abducted yesterday, he was sent to the police station, and by the next morning he was dead. So that information now, you don't need to wait until the 9 o'clock news. It's on social media, it's happening real time. So in terms of sharing information, the environment is conducive. But I agree with you that in terms of accountability, in terms of justice, in terms of fairness, we are still way behind and we are not seeing those happening. If you look at matters to do with justice, you've given a very good example of Albert Ojwang. Up to this point in time, he has not gotten justice. If you look at the issue of the young man who was shot at point blank range, who is lying at Kenyatta Hospital, Boniface, I believe, Mwangi Kariuki, again, he's not gotten justice. Today we were following up on the issue, on the case of Joshua Stephen Kariuki Njehia, who was shot in Mwiki. Up to this point in time, even though there are CCTV cameras clearly pointing out and showing the officer, shooting, that officer has not been arrested. So I agree with you that this point we are in as a country, impunity is still thriving, and we need to do more for us to be able to say, now we have reached the ideal situation where justice is guaranteed. The reason why we say everyone is innocent until proven guilty by a court of law is so that everyone can get a fair chance of defending themselves. So for us, mainly, our issue is always to have the individual arrested and to be presented before a court of law. And then the courts now will make the determination whether they are guilty or not. Of course, lawyers have to come in, they have to defend their clients, and that's the purpose of having a judicial system. So that everyone can go through the system. Mtu asiseme alionewa, that they were not given an opportunity to defend themselves. So yes, there are those stories that people are now bringing up. But now that's up to the judiciary. Because someone is in critical condition in the ICU of Kenyatta Hospital. And then you say it is AI generated. So did the AI injure that individual? Yeah, even if it is a rubber bullet, the issue is that person is in critical condition. Who caused him to be in that condition? So these are questions I'm sure they will be mitigated in court. And as I said, everyone has the right to defend themselves. And if you feel that is the defense you want to take up in court, well, we will let the judge decide. But for us, what's important is that you have been charged in a court of law, and now we await for the decisions of the court. I think presently, activism has metamorphosized, and it has now become a thing of the people. During our days, 10, 15 years ago, we would be in the streets and we would be campaigning and championing for certain rights, and you would be marching in the streets, and people would be by the roadsides, they're looking at you. The best maybe they would do is they'll say, yeah, endelea kututetea, good, they're urging you on. That is what we had in the past. And we would tell them, this is not just for me. It's not just for my benefit, it even affects you. Why are you standing by the roadside and not joining us so that we can fight for this issue together? If it's corruption, if it's extrajudicial killing, they were not doing that. But presently, and this is why I give credit to the Gen Zs, they are all involved. They are not leaving anything just for activists or just for lawyers. They want to be part of it. That's why the lawyers in the Gen Zs, the engineers in the Gen Zs, the Juakali artisans in the Gen Zs, the jobless in the Gen Zs, all of them, when it's time for protest, they all join in. And that's the power of the Gen Zs, that, you know, they're not leaving anything to chance. They're not saying, oh, activists, go and fight for us, or lawyers, go and speak. No, they're saying this affects us, it affects me as a person, and whatever profession I belong to, I will go and I will have my voice heard. And that for me is, you know, brilliant for a generation as young as the ones we have now. So 25th of June 2025 will be marking the first anniversary, you know, to commemorate the over 60 Kenyans who were brutally murdered by the police service in Kenya. And as has been said in the past, we consider 25th of June as a public holiday. And we're asking Kenyans, wherever they are, to join us in the streets to commemorate our fallen comrades. Or maybe you're not able to join us in the streets, then stay at home. Don't go to work. Don't report to your normal stations, because it's a public holiday. The least you can do is remain at home. Remember those over 60 Kenyans who lost their lives. And on 25th of June, we will be remembering our heroes. We have a process of laying flowers at the spots where they were killed. For example, Rex Masai, who was the first one to be shot and killed during last year's protest, it was on Moya Avenue. So we intend to have a session somewhere where during the day where we will go to the spot where he lost his life. We'll lay flowers and we'll remember him as we pray for him and ask God to rest his soul in peace. We'll also be presenting a petition to the office of the president and also to parliament, so that you know, we can make our demands for justice, particularly justice for the families that have lost their kin. And these are some of the things that are being planned. And if you look at the social media, there are also other plans that people are also, you know, intending to undertake. But we are saying that you know, 25th of June is a public holiday to commemorate our modern day heroes, modern day Mau Maus. So as far as politicians are concerned, of course they're entitled to their opinions. If they don't think we should commemorate our fallen comrades, they're entitled to their opinion. When one of them was killed, the member of parliament, I think his name was Were, we saw how they were so emotional, you know, and they were so ready to condemn and to demand justice and so on and so forth. And unfortunately, the political class in our country are very selfish. An issue is an issue only when it affects them or one of them. But when it affects the masses, they tell us to move on. So they're entitled to their opinions. We don't take them seriously. That's why Sisi, we say fagia wote. And we hope that come 2027, that majority, if not all of them, will be sent home. But specifically for the 25th of June, yes, the last protest we had last week, we saw how goons infiltrated. And let's remember that these goons are sent by the same individuals, the politicians. They're the ones who hire these goons and send them to the streets to disrupt peaceful protesters. For us, we expect that 25th of June will be extremely peaceful. We have had good negotiations with the police in Nairobi, in Mombasa, and other towns. They have okayed the protests. They've said that they will be there to protect the people, to ensure there is peace, and you know, we expect that they will do that. As far as the youth who will be approached to come and interfere as goons, we hope they will see the bigger picture, that majority of those who are affected at this point in time by the way things are the youth. When they come to disrupt those who are calling for better terms for our country, they are actually fighting themselves, because at the end of the day, the benefits of these protests and the demand for change is supposed to benefit particularly Kenyans and the younger ones more. So if they are to come and to disrupt, it's really foolhardy. I can't even explain. People are out in the streets demanding justice for Ojwang. Ojwang was a young Kenyan. Ojwang was killed in a police station, and people are out there demanding justice for them, and you are paid 2,000 or 50 shillings and you're given alcohol to come and counter, you know, a cause that will even affect you, because as a goon you're most likely to end up at Central Police Station yourself. And we are here calling for justice, that those police stations should be safe, and you are countering that. So I mean, I hope these young Kenyans who are being used for these purposes will see the sense in it, so that, you know, they tell those politicians no, and we will join the rest of the Kenyans in ensuring that, you know, the protests are safe, the protests are peaceful, and we can have a better country for ourselves. I think in the many years I've been in the activism sector, I've always hoped that things will get better, and that wananchi will take the mantle of activism in their own hands. But last year was just, you know, so encouraging. For me, I was arrested on the first day of the protests, and I was taken to Central Police Station. And when I was in that cell, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Because usually we are used to the usual suspects. You'll have Hussein Khalid arrested, maybe Boniface Mwangi, maybe some other guy, you know, people in the civil society, and it would be like 5, 6, 7 of us in the police cells, and we know the process, you know, the usual suspects. But when I was arrested last year during the Gen Z protest, I was amazed. First of all, the cell was packed. I think we were almost 90. You could hardly move around the cells. And I was like, where are all these people coming from? You know, it's unusual that you are arrested in a protest and you are like 90 plus or something like that in the cells. Number two, the demography. Almost 90% of those who are in the cells were below 25 years. You know, young faces. You could actually see this is probably a university student, or this one is fresh from school. And I was like, wow. These are young men who have decided to come out, you know, and demand that the finance bill be rejected. I was really, really like encouraged and impressed. And when I heard that, you know, in the opposite cells, there were even more ladies, you know. So you find that the ladies, even within the Gen Z and in this movement, we see ladies taking the mantle of leadership even more than the young men. And that's very encouraging. That's very different. Over the years, it has been men, you know, probably millennials, you know, the younger, but this time round, it's ladies, very young Kenyans, Gen Zs, and this is something, you know, we didn't expect that would happen so abruptly, but it has. So for me, the future of activism is safe, as long as we have this young generation taking over that leadership. I'm really encouraged, and I hope that, you know, this generation will continue with that. I'm urging colleagues, you know, from my age, please, we need to encourage the young ones. Some of us who are in our 40s, you know, we feel that we have done our bit. And to see the younger generation that we can now pass, you know, the stick to and tell them proceed, this is very, very encouraging. So I would urge those of my generation, we've done our time, we've been in the streets, we've done everything. Let's be here. Let's guide the younger ones so that they can take over. Let's show them how to, you know, maneuver, because this is our time. We were not given that opportunity by our fathers. They were not there because they were even more scared than us, you know, and they couldn't even, when we told them we are going to the streets, they would like, no, they would fight us, don't go to the streets. But now those of us who are there, we are encouraging younger ones to go to the streets and fight for your rights. So I'm urging those of my generation, please, let's give a helping hand to the younger generations so that they can build a better Kenya. But let me tell you one thing, there's no funding that comes from that comes from non-government institutions. Of course, majority of the funds that NGOs receive, they get these funds from embassies. And embassies are governments. And no government will fund anarchy in any country. And, if any donor was to confirm that you're using money to pay goons or to cause chaos in any country, they wouldn't allow that. No amount of money can be paid to someone to go and risk their lives. The people who are at the forefront, when you see people in the forefront and there are bullets flying, that in previous protests people have been killed, that person cannot be there for money, because no amount of money accounts or amounts to an individual's life. Majority of us who are in the front line, we are there because we believe in the cause. It's not about money. And, when we go to demonstrations and we protest, there is no funding anyone receives to go and protest. Ask any donor, anywhere there, if they would give money to anyone and tell them, go and protest. We want you to go and protest. No such. Most of the money that is used during protest is personal money. Donors give you money to do meetings in hotels. Donors give you money to do press conferences. Donors give you money to do trainings, but there is no money from donor for protests, for demonstrations. And, this is a criticism that is used mainly by government officers to try and discredit activists, to try and make the activists look bad. No institution in any country receives more money from donors than the government. The government is the one that receives the highest amount of money, whether it's from the US, the UK, the Danes, and what. The government receives the most. Does it mean that that government has a hidden agenda? That they're driving a foreign agenda? So even us, we love our country. And, the much work that we do, ni ya kujitolea. It's, giving out because you believe in your country and in your people. I've been arrested many times. I've been arrested 20, 30 times, I don't know. In Nairobi, in Mombasa, Meru, Nakuru. I've seen the inside of many police cells. I've even lost count. But at the end of it all, I say, if I was to do it again, I most definitely would. And for most of the frontline activists, even before a protest, you really kneel down and pray. When you leave home, because you don't know if you're going to come back. So every day you step out there because you hear someone has been killed, and you tell yourself, that could have been me. That young man who is now fighting for his life at Kenyatta National Hospital, I was in those protests. I was in the streets on that day. It could have been me standing there, receiving the slaps and then being shot at point blank range. So for us activists, it's an everyday risk. When you leave home, your wife does not know if you're coming back. Your children don't know if they'll be left orphaned, if you will come. That's why I say no amount of money can pay for that. Because you are there, you believe in the cause. And you're saying, even if I have to pay the ultimate price, but I will die believing that I died for my country. I died for a cause. I died to make the lives of other Kenyans better. And that is what drives us to go out there. And I hope that, with time, we will be vindicated, and that Kenyans will get to enjoy a good life where human rights and civil liberties are fully promoted and protected. For everything you do, you should never lose hope. You should never lose hope in your country. This is the only country we call home. We have no other place to go and say we're at home. 254 is our home. And we must have hope for a better Kenya. And for me, if we lose that hope, then we'll have nothing to fight for. So yes, I do believe that if we continue pushing, if we continue probing, that eventually we will get to a level where we will find justice. We know where we are from, far much worse, and looking at that history to where we are today, it promises us, if we continue on that trajectory, then we will get better. So yes, I do believe that eventually we will get justice.